The snow was falling harder than ever across the north. The wind howled like 1,000 dying ghosts, sweeping over the wall. Jon Snow stood at the top, staring into the white, feeling the weight of command pressing down on him. He was no longer just a bastard of Winterfell. He was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. But even now, something felt wrong. He had seen things, dead men walking, blue-eyed monsters rising, and he knew deep inside that the real war hadn't even begun. Far to the south, in the cold halls of Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon sat with Melisandre, the Red Woman, discussing fate. Her voice was calm, but full of fire. "The true war is coming," she whispered. "Not for thrones or crowns, but for survival itself. Ice against fire. Death against life." She had seen a vision dragons. Not just the creatures flying in the east with the girl called Daenerys, but something else. She saw flames in the north, lighting the sky red. She saw Jon Snow standing among them. And oddly, she saw Stannis, not dying in the snow, but surrounded by heat. She didn't tell him everything, only that they had to go north, now, before it was too late. At the same time, thousands of miles away, the dragons in Meereen were restless. Daenerys kept them locked up, afraid of their power. But Drogon had already escaped, and the other two were growing more aggressive. It was as if they sensed something, as if they were being called. Then, one night, everything changed. Melisandre performed a ritual under the night sky with Stannis and his daughter, Shireen. It was a dark thing, ancient and forgotten. Blood magic, fire and shadow. She spoke Valyrian words and cast something into the flames. The next day, ravens came from the wall. Jon Snow had seen something. A creature. A dead thing moving in the woods. He sent a message, not to the King's Landing, but to Dragonstone. He remembered what Sam had found in the old books about dragons and the long night. If there was magic anywhere strong enough to fight what was coming, it would be with fire. With dragons? Melisandre took it as a sign. She told Stannis that they needed to ride north, not to take Winterfell, not to fight the Boltons, but to reach the wall. The flames had shown her a meeting that could change the fate of the world. Stannis hesitated, but she looked at him with those burning eyes. "You are Athor Ahai reborn," she said. "You must walk with fire." Within weeks, their small army marched north. Snowstorms slowed them, and many men died, but Melisandre kept pushing. She seemed less afraid of the cold than anyone else. Shireen rode beside her father, quiet and pale, but always watching. Then something strange happened. As they crossed the neck, a shadow passed over them. At first, they thought it was a cloud, but the scream that followed wasn't of the wind. It was loud and sharp, like a beast. Jon Snow, now back at Castle Black, saw the shape too far in the sky, heading toward the wall. At first he thought he was dreaming, but then it came again. A dragon. Drogon. He had flown away from Daenerys months ago, and now something had called him. Not food, not war, but fire. Old fire. Blood magic awakened something in his ancient heart. And he wasn't alone. The meeting that never happened in the original story was now about to happen. Jon Snow, Stannis Baratheon, Melisandre, and a dragon under the same sky, near the wall. The world was about to shift. The dragon landed just outside Castle Black, its wings shaking the snow from the trees, its roar echoing across the land like thunder. Men scrambled to the top of the wall with bows drawn, trembling with fear. They had never seen such a thing. Some called it a monster, others a miracle. But Jon Snow? He walked forward, slowly, carefully. Something inside him stirred not fear, but recognition. Drogon lowered his head, eyes glowing like molten gold, watching Jon with strange calm. He didn't attack. He didn't burn. He just stared, as if he was waiting. Jon stopped a few feet away, heart pounding. "What in the seven hells?" he whispered. Ghost, his direwolf, stood at his side, growling low, but not stepping back. Before anything else could happen, horns sounded from the south. A small army was approaching banners of the fiery heart of R'hllor and the stag of House Baratheon. Stannis had arrived, Melisandre riding just behind him, her red eyes fixed on the black dragon before them. Jon met them at the gate. "What is that?" Stannis demanded, sword half drawn. "A dragon," Jon replied flatly, as if that explained everything. Melisandre stepped forward, her face glowing as if the heat from the dragon had given her new life. "He has come, just as the flames showed me." "You called this thing here?" Jon asked, confused and angry. "I called fire to meet ice," she answered. "This is only the beginning." That night, they made camp at Castle Black. The men were terrified, some whispering of demons, others of legends. But Jon couldn't sleep. He stood outside, watching Drogon rest near the edge of the forest. The beast didn't seem to care about the snow or the cold. He simply waited. Melisandre joined Jon near the fire. She looked at him, as she had before, with unsettling calm. "You felt it, didn't you?" she said softly. "What?" "The pull. The heat in your blood. You're not just a man of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow. You're something else. You carry fire inside you." Jon shook his head. "I'm just a bastard." "Ned Stark's mistake?" She smiled faintly. "That's what the world told you. But the flames tell another story." Before he could reply, a second roar shattered the night. 2 more dragons. Rhaegal and Viserion burst through the sky like comets, their wings glowing under the moonlight. They circled Drogon and then landed beside him. The snow melted around them. Heat poured off their bodies. The men in Castle Black panicked. Some ran, others fell to their knees in prayer. But Jon stood still, and the dragons looked at him. Not at Stannis, not even at Melisandre. Just him. The Red Woman noticed it too. "They know you," she said in awe. "They've chosen you." Stannis stepped forward, face tight with disbelief. "They are beasts." "Nothing more." "No," Melisandre whispered. "They are magic, fire made flesh. And they do not bow to just anyone." Jon's head was spinning. He had never believed in prophecy or gods. But the way those creatures looked at him, it was like they were waiting for him to do something. As if they saw something in him he didn't even see himself. "I'm no king," Jon muttered. "But you might be something greater," Melisandre replied. As dawn broke, the dragons remained, perched outside the wall, watching. Melisandre claimed it was a sign of destiny. Jon still didn't know what to believe. But deep beyond the wall, something else had awakened too. The Night King felt it, the fire burning where it shouldn't. His army of the dead moved slower now, cautious. He had known the world of men would resist. But he hadn't expected dragons. Not yet. The balance had shifted. Fire had come north early, and the long night would no longer go unchallenged. The sun barely touched the snow-covered land, but the air was already thick with heat. The dragons had stayed through the night, their breath turning the cold air into waves of steam. Castle Black was no longer just a place of black cloaks and silence. Now it pulsed with tension, wonder, and fear. Jon walked among the men, trying to keep control, but they whispered behind his back. "He speaks to dragons," one said. "They follow him," said another. "He's not one of us anymore." He ignored them. But the words stung. He hadn't asked for this. He was already struggling with what it meant to be Lord Commander. Now he had dragons looking at him like he was born to lead them. And Melisandre, always watching, always whispering things he didn't want to hear. That morning, she came to him again. "There is power in blood, Jon Snow," she said. "You are not just some northern bastard. You are the blood of the dragon." Jon stared at her, jaw clenched. "I'm Ned Stark's son. You are not," she said quietly. "You never were." Jon froze. He had heard rumors before, whispers of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, but he'd never wanted to believe it. It felt like a betrayal to the man who raised him. Yet the way the dragons reacted, the way the fire didn't burn him when he approached Dragon, it all added up in terrifying ways. Stannis, meanwhile, grew colder by the hour. He watched how the men looked at Jon now, how even the Red Woman, once fully devoted to him, now leaned toward Jon like he was the true chosen one. He clenched his fists in silence. He had come north to save the realm, not to be pushed aside by a boy with a wolf and a strange past. "We march soon," he told his commanders. "Winterfell must fall. The Boltons must die." But Melisandre interrupted. "If you go south now, you walk into darkness. The wall is where you must be. This is where the war will begin." Stannis stared at her. "You said I was Azor Ahai. The flames showed me victorious." "They showed you near the fire," she replied. "But maybe I misunderstood what fire meant." Stannis said nothing. But something in him cracked that day. That night, Jon stood at the edge of the wall, looking into the endless snow. Ghost was at his side, silent and alert. The dragons lay in the woods below, eyes glowing in the dark. Then he felt it. A chill unlike any before. From the trees beyond the wall, they came pale blue eyes, twisted faces, broken bones. The White Walkers had sent a warning. A dozen whites crossed the field slowly, silently. No charge. No ambush, just a message. Jon rang the bell. The archers fired, flaming arrows lighting the sky. But the whites didn't run. They burned, yes, but they didn't scream. They just watched as the fire consumed them, empty eyes locked on the wall. Jon knew what it meant. They were testing him. The next morning he called a council. Stannis sat stiffly, his pride still bleeding. Melisandre stood beside Jon now. Even the Night's Watch officers, like Dolorous Et and Alliser Thorne, listened more carefully. "They're coming," Jon said. "And they don't fear us." "You have dragons," Alliser muttered, shaking his head. "Use them? I don't control them," Jon replied. "They came on their own. I don't even know why." Melisandre turned to him. "Because you are fire reborn. They were drawn to you. The blood in your veins called them. That cannot be ignored." Jon looked at her, eyes tired. "And if they follow me, what do you want me to do? Burn the north?" "No," she said. "Save it." But deep down, Jon knew. Fire always has a cost. The dragons might be the key to defeating the White Walkers, but at what price? And in the distance, beyond the trees, the Night King stood watching. He saw the dragons. He saw Jon Snow, and for the first time in centuries, the Great Other felt threatened. The air had changed. Not just cold now, but wrong. Like something ancient and cruel was waking up under the snow. Jon could feel it in his bones. The kind of chill that no fire could warm. He stood in the courtyard of Castle Black, staring at the dragons resting beyond the gates. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, unmoving but alert. Rhaegal lifted his head and let out a low growl, looking beyond the wall. Something was coming. Inside the castle, chaos simmered. The men of the Night's Watch had never trained to fight monsters. They were killers, thieves, and broken boys forced into service, not soldiers ready for war with the dead. And now they had dragons watching them from the trees. Some called it prophecy. Others called it madness. And Stannis was breaking. He called Jon to a private meeting, the flames of a small brazier flickering between them. His face was tight, bitter. "I should be the one they follow," he said, voice low. "Not you. I have the blood, the claim, the crown." "I never asked for any of this," Jon replied. "But they listened to you." Stannis leaned in. "Even the dragons seem to." Jon met his gaze. "Then maybe we need to stop worrying about who's king and focus on the real enemy." Stannis didn't answer, but something in his eyes twisted. That night, everything fell apart. It started with shouting from the wall. Jon rushed up the stairs, Ghost right behind him. In the distance, fire lit up the forest. Not theirs, blue fire. The Night King had made his move. Hundreds of whites stormed the woods, attacking the dragons. Drogon reacted first, rising into the sky and spewing fire across the snow. The heat melted trees. The dead burned. But still they came. Rhaegal followed, taking flight and ripping through a group of whites with his claws. But Viserion, he was slower, distracted, too close to the ground. That's when it happened. A long, ice-tipped spear flew from the trees, thrown by a figure tall and pale as death. The Night King. The spear hit Viserion in the neck. The dragon screamed, terrible, shaking sound that cracked the night. He dropped from the sky like a burning star, crashing into the forest with a blast of snow and flame. Jon saw it all from the wall. His heart stopped. No? He rushed down, ignoring the shouts behind him. Ghost followed without hesitation. Melisandre screamed for him to wait, but he didn't hear her. He ran into the woods, past dead bodies and burning trees, until he found Viserion. The dragon was lying on his side, breathing weakly, blood hissing into the snow. His golden eyes locked on Jon's. "I'm sorry," Jon whispered, placing a hand on the creature's warm, scaled neck. Then the air went silent. The dead had stopped moving, and the Night King stepped forward. Tall, terrible, his skin like ice, his eyes glowing blue. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He just stared at Jon with a hatred that felt older than the world. Jon drew Lone Claw. "You want me?" he said. "Then come take me." But the Night King didn't attack. Instead, he raised one hand, and Viserion's glowing eyes slowly turned blue. Jon backed away, horrified. "No." The dragon jerked, then stilled. Then, with a bone-shaking roar, Viserion rose again, not dead, not alive. A creature of frost now. His wounds frozen, his breath no longer fire, but cold wind. The Night King had claimed a dragon. Jon barely escaped with his life. Drogon swooped down at the last second, flames covering their retreat as Jon jumped onto his back. The dragon carried him away, high into the sky. From above, Jon saw it clearly. An army of the dead stretching as far as the eye could see. And now, they had their own dragon. He landed back at Castle Black, face ashen, blood freezing on his skin. Melisandre looked at him, shaken for the first time. "He has turned the fire," she whispered. "He's corrupted it." Jon looked at the sky, where the blue-eyed dragon was circling far away. "We're not ready," he said. And now, the war wasn't just fire against ice. It was fire versus fire. Castle Black had never been so silent. Even with hundreds of men inside, it felt like a tomb. Word of Viserion's fall spread like wildfire, but no one dared speak of it aloud. A dragon had died. And worse, it had been stolen, turned into a weapon for the very thing they feared most. The Night King now had wings and fire, no longer belonged to the living alone. Jon Snow sat alone in the old commander's chambers, staring at the sword on the table, Lone Claw, black and heavy. He had seen death before. He had buried friends, fought monsters, even come back from the dead. But nothing felt like this. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was loss. It was failure. Melisandre entered without knocking. She walked slowly, her usual confidence shaken. "He took one of them," she said softly, almost like a confession. Jon didn't look at her. "I saw. We didn't move fast enough. The fire was ours. Now it's his." Jon stood, eyes fierce. "Then we take it back." She nodded. "Yes, but not with swords, not with pride. With sacrifice." That word hung in the air. Jon narrowed his eyes. "What kind of sacrifice?" Melisandre didn't answer. She only looked at him with that same knowing, burning gaze. Outside, Drogon and Rhaegal were restless. They roared through the sky, searching for the third, but Viserion never came back. He belonged to the cold now, and somewhere far beyond the wall, he was learning to breathe death. Stannis, still nursing his bruised ego, stood before his men. He hadn't spoken to Jon since the attack. The fire in his heart had dimmed. Melisandre no longer looked to him, and that stung deeper than any wound. He had begun to wonder if the prophecy had always been about someone else. Later that day, Jon held council again. The map of the North was spread across the table. "We can't stay here," he said. "If we wait, the Night King will come with his full army. And now, with that dragon, he'll fly over the wall. What do you suggest?" Alliser Thorne asked, still skeptical, but less hostile now. "We go beyond the wall," Jon said. "The room went quiet. We track him. We find his army. We don't let him choose when or where to attack. We strike first. You want to march into the land of the dead?" Dolorous had asked. "You've officially lost your bloody mind. We've already lost one dragon. If we wait, we'll lose everything else." Melisandre stepped forward. "He's right. The enemy is not just flesh and bone. He's ancient, cold. He will keep growing stronger. We must go to him before his power becomes unstoppable." Stannis stared at Jon. "And who leads this mad journey?" "You?" "I'll go," Jon said. "Of course," Stannis muttered. The bastard with dragons and prophecy behind him. But Melisandre ignored him. "You are fire and ice, Jon Snow. They were never meant to stay apart in you. Your time has come." Jon didn't believe in all her riddles and flames, but something inside him burned now. A need, a fury. He looked at the dragons circling above the wall and nodded. "We ride north at first light. Small party. Fast. We go straight toward the Night King. We end this." That night, before leaving, Jon walked into the old library. Sam had sent him a final letter before heading to Old Town. Inside it, there was a passage about the prince that was promised, reborn, not just in fire, but forged in pain. Jon stared into the fire. He didn't know what he was, but he knew what he had to do. At dawn, he mounted Drogon. Stannis refused to ride with him. He stayed behind, convinced his war was still waiting at Winterfell. But Melisandre joined him, and so did a small band of trusted men Tormund Johnspane, Dolorous, and a few brave volunteers. Rhaegal flew beside them, screaming into the wind. Beyond the wall, the sky was darker, colder. The dead were waiting. But Jon Snow was coming, and he was not the same man anymore. The wind beyond the wall was sharper, colder, almost alive. It howled through the frozen trees like a warning, but Jon Snow didn't flinch. He gripped tightly onto Drogon's back as they soared above the haunted forest. Behind him, Rhaegal carried Tormund and Et. Melisandre rode with him, her red robes snapping in the air, face calm but unreadable. From above, the north looked like a graveyard. Endless white, silent, lifeless. But Jon knew better. The dead were there, watching, waiting. "We're close," Melisandre said, eyes closed, voice steady. "I feel the cold." And the fire inside it. Jon looked down. Smoke rose in the far distance, not from fire, but from death. A camp, a trap. The Night King wanted him to come. They landed cautiously in a clearing, surrounded by trees twisted by frost. As the dragons growled low and uneasy, Jon and his group dismounted. The snow was deep, but the tracks were clear. Footprints that didn't belong to the living. Tormund unslung his axe. "This smells wrong." "It is," Melisandre whispered. "He's not just a man. He's a force." "He knew you'd come." Jon drew Longclaw. They moved forward through the trees. No sound, no animals, no wind. Just a thick, unnatural stillness. Then suddenly, the dead were there. They didn't rush. They stood still, dozens of them, blocking the path. Their eyes glowed blue. Some were armored, others half rotten, but they all held weapons. Behind them came the Night King. He was atop Viserion, the undead dragon. The beast's eyes blazed like blue suns. Its wings moved in eerie silence, frost trailing behind. Jon stepped forward, sword ready. "Come down and fight me," he shouted. The Night King only tilted his head. Then he smiled. With a single motion, he raised his hand, and the dead charged. The dragons roared. Drogon and Rhaegal took to the skies, bathing the dead in fire. Bones exploded, bodies burned. But Jon didn't watch. He ran straight for the Night King. He ducked a swing from a wight, slashed another across the chest, then leapt onto a frozen boulder as Viserion landed in front of him, frost swirling around his claws. Jon hesitated just for a second. That second cost him. The Night King threw another ice spear. It missed Drogon but hit the ground near Melisandre, throwing her back with a scream. She hit a tree, blood trailing from her mouth. Jon turned toward her, distracted. That's when the Night King dismounted. He stepped forward. Jon met him head-on, and their blades clashed ice and Valyrian steel. The impact sent a pulse through the snow. The Night King moved fast, inhumanly fast. Every blow was precise, meant to kill. Jon held his ground, slashing, parrying, but it was like fighting a glacier with a torch. Then the Night King grinned, and Longclaw shattered. Jon stumbled back, stunned. The broken hilt still in his hand, useless. The Night King raised his blade for the killing blow, but then fire. A blast of flame exploded between them as Drogon landed, roaring with fury. The heat melted snow for 100 yards. The Night King stepped back, not afraid, but annoyed. From the trees, Melisandre stood again, her face pale, but her hands glowing red-hot. She screamed an ancient spell. The flames around Drogon changed, turned blue and gold, brighter than ever. Jon felt it inside him, a rush of heat, of something ancient, the same pull he felt the day the dragons arrived. He looked at the broken sword in his hand. The metal still burned from the fire. Without thinking, he pushed the shards into the snow. And then something unbelievable happened. The steel began to melt, then reshape. In seconds, the broken blade reformed into a new one, longer, brighter, glowing with heat. A sword of fire. Melisandre gasped. "Lightbringer?" Jon picked it up. It felt like it belonged. The Night King stepped forward again, his face no longer calm. Jon attacked. The blade cut through the air like lightning. When it struck the Night King's blade, it didn't just clash, it shattered it. The Night King staggered. For the first time, he bled. Black smoke poured from the wound. He screamed a sound that made the forest tremble. But before Jon could strike again, Viserion let out a deafening roar and covered his master in blue fire. The smoke cleared, and the Night King was gone, vanished into frost and flame. Jon fell to one knee, heart pounding, Lightbringer still glowing in his hand. He had wounded him, not killed him, but it was enough. The dead stopped, collapsed. Whatever hold he had, it was broken for now. Melisandre limped forward, smiling faintly. "You are the fire, Jon Snow. You are the one." But Jon didn't feel like a hero. He looked at the sky, where Viserion still flew, trailing ice through the air. The war was not over. It had only just begun. The wind whispered through the trees as Jon Snow stood in the ruins of the frozen battlefield, Lightbringer burning low in his hand. Around him, the corpses of the whites steamed and hissed as they melted into black sludge. The forest was silent again, but not with peace. It was the quiet before the next storm. Melisandre sat by a rock, her breath shallow, her red robes stained with blood. Jon moved to help her, but she raised a hand weakly. "No," she said, "my purpose. It's fulfilled. You're dying," Jon said. "I've seen it. This is where I fall. But you, She pointed at the sword glowing in his grip. "You've been born anew." Jon wanted to argue, but how could he? His broken sword had remade itself in fire. The dragons listened to him. And the Night King had bled from his blade. He couldn't deny it anymore. He was no longer just a Snow. Back at Castle Black, word of the battle spread faster than wildfire. Some called it a miracle. Others feared it. The wall shook with rumors of a sword made of flame, of a dragon turned to ice, of Jon Snow glowing like a god of old. And Stannis. He heard every word. He stood on the wall, jaw clenched, hands balled into fists. The Red Woman no longer followed him. The dragons ignored him. And now even prophecy had passed him by. His pride, once a steel wall, was now cracking with fury. "That sword should have been mine," he muttered. "That fate was meant for me." Below, Jon returned to Castle Black, with Melisandre's body wrapped in red cloth. She had died in the forest hours after the fight, whispering something Jon didn't understand. When fire breaks the cold but doesn't kill it, blood must pay again. Jon laid her to rest beyond the wall, with Ghost at his side and the dragons circling high above. The sky was turning darker by the hour. Snow fell harder, but it wasn't just weather. It was war coming. That night, Jon stood before the men of the Night's Watch. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. "The Night King isn't dead," he said, "but he's wounded. And he knows we're coming. You can't expect us to fight that thing again," muttered a ranger from the back. "We don't have a choice." Jon turned to the dragons. "He has one of them. And if we don't act, he'll have more." That's when a raven arrived, black, massive, and marked with a sigil Jon didn't recognize. He opened the scroll. His hands went cold. "It's from Eastwatch," he said. "What does it say?" asked Ed. Jon read it aloud. "He's broken the sea." Everyone stared. Tormund stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Jon looked up, his voice hollow. "The Night King used Viserion to bring down the wall on the eastern coast. He melted it with blue fire. His army is crossing." The room exploded in shouts. "How many?" "Tens of thousands," Jon said. "Maybe more." He's not waiting anymore. The Night King had changed his game. He wasn't hiding in the woods. He was marching on the north. And now, Winterfell was in his path. Jon turned to the dragons, to Rhaegal and Drogon, who paced restlessly outside the wall. "They know where we need to go." "Winterfell?" Tormund asked. Jon nodded. "We gather the north. We unite every house that still breathes. Stark, Mormont, Reed, Glover, every one of them. And we make our stand there." "But your sword," Ed said, staring at the glowing blade. "It can kill him?" Jon looked down at Lightbringer. Its fire had dimmed, but the heat inside was still alive. "I don't know if it can kill him, but it's the only thing that ever hurt him." And then came the final blow. Stannis stepped into the hall, surrounded by his few remaining loyal men. His face was grim, his voice hard. "You don't have the right to lead this," he said. "You're not a king." "I'm not trying to be one," Jon replied. "I'm trying to save the realm." Stannis stepped closer, his hand on his sword. "You've stolen my fate, my prophecy, my fire. You ride dragons, carry the sword of legend, and people call you Azor Ahai. But that was meant to be me. Then come with me," Jon said. "Fight beside me. Prove it." Stannis looked him in the eyes and drew his sword. "No," he whispered. "I take back what's mine." Before Jon could react, Drogon roared louder than ever. He landed between them, his tail crashing against the wall, eyes locked on Stannis. The heat from his body sent soldiers scrambling. Jon didn't flinch. He stepped around the dragon, Lightbringer in hand. And in that moment, every man saw it. The fire didn't belong to Stannis anymore. It belonged to Jon. And Jon turned his back on Stannis without another word. He had no time for petty kings. The true war was coming. and only true fire could stand against the night.